Hmm. Okay, hi everyone. So again, I'm Smithy Q. And I got something completely different. For the first time since 2002, I have competed in an over-the-board event. That's right. Um, I haven't actually played chess barely at all in the last 2 years. It's been decades since I played over the board, but hey, I got invited out. It was nearby, and so I did. And so I want to analyze the game that I played yesterday. There's a lot of factors going against me. Again, haven't played in a while, haven't really been studying chess. I got paired against the highest rated player there. Um, and then we played an opening that I had absolutely no experience in. But still, I want to go to dive deep, looking into this game, um, mostly for my own benefit, so that way I can record what I was thinking about and then how I can improve. Because well, let's just take a look. It actually started off, played c4, so already not great. I'll just also say, going into this, the only thing I kind of knew was that I wanted to play something like a Benko Gambit. I wanted one of those positions. And we get something Benko-ish. So we actually transpose into the King's Indian defense. Anyone who's been watching me for any length of time knows that I really like this opening, but I'm really bad at it. Probably because I haven't really studied it anywhere near where I should have. And then we actually play, again, a variation that I have zero experience with. This is the Averbach system. I know that's the main trap. I know this is if you play e5, because after exchange, this is not just a regular exchange variation, this is a really bad one. Knight's double attacked, c-pawn's also attacked, and then you're losing at least a pawn here. This is the notorious trap. So I knew not to do that. I knew that the move was c5. Then after d5, I thought, hey, here we go. Let's Benko Gambit it up. You don't want to take with the knight because you're going to lose this. And you probably don't want to give up the bishop to take with the knight. And so my opponent, he takes the pawn. I play a6. He plays a4, queen a5, and we got the Benko Gambit, more or less what I wanted. I have no idea what the theory was at the time, but here we go. Queen, of course, is pinning the knight. So I'm threatening knight takes e4. Maybe he'll do something awkward like f3 to defend the pawn, and we're trying to get the normal queenside pressure going. My opponent, he actually plays the best move here, which is to bring the bishop all the way back to d2. At the time, I wasn't completely sure if this was the best move, and I was really hoping, because my opponent had played two moves to bring his bishop there, whereas, for example, if I were to go all the way back, under a normal Benko gambit, we look at something like this, take, especially some of the modern lines where we don't take on a6 right away. And so we're going to get something like this with knight f3, queen a5. The bishop would come to d2 in one move. And instead, of course, in the game, it goes to g5, and then it comes back here. So I was hoping that this loss of time, moving the bishop twice to come to the same square, would actually help. But if we compare this position, after bishop goes to d2, with the actual position that I got in the game, let's see if I can find it, we'll see here that it's actually quite a little bit different. For one, I've actually, quote unquote, wasted time playing d6, not strictly necessary. Doesn't really help at any of the complications. And exchange, white has already played bishop e2 and he's already played a4. And so the loss of time is, you could say, compensated by the gain of time with a4, useful move, securing b5, and bishop e2, he's one move closer to castling. So I didn't get anywhere. Um, so the loss of time by moving the bishop twice, so to speak, is purely academic. It's not there at all. And here I think I make a fairly serious inaccuracy. And I felt it at the time. I was debating what I wanted to do. The problem was, like the normal idea, we're going to take, he's going to take back. Maybe I'll play bishop a6. Apparently the best move, according to the database, is knight e2 here. And we can just see that normally with the Benko, we want to sacrifice pawns on the queen side, so that way we have these nice open lines, we've got the queen side pressure. But we've had nothing here, right? The knight, the pawn, all of this, that completely blocks me down. I have to always worry about this knight eventually moving and exposing my queen to this check. I've got absolutely nothing here. And I'm looking at the database right here. White wins 71% of the time in the master database. So pretty unhappy position for black. Um, what else do I do? I ended up playing knight goes to d7, which, and the computer instantly brings us up into 1.5 territory. And so this here is comfortably better, borderline winning, if like in correspondence chess type things. And I think one of the reasons for that, it's funny because at the time I knew that, sorry, may back up. Where does this knight want to go? Ideally, I can coerce white to take on a6, and the knight then is able to jump into b4. Aha, there's a good square. Fantastic. Alternatively, maybe the knight can go here and then goes here, and then I'm attacking b5. So again, if we just do like an imaginary type position, I don't even know. Let's just do something like this. You know, just well, even that doesn't work. Yeah, I'm really struggling with these positions. But anyway, once I brought the knight goes to d7, that didn't seem to really do anything to counter this whole clamp idea. And it was just one of those natural developing moves that didn't really seem to move the needle in any way. And we can see that this knight never really does anything in this game. My opponent plays rook a3, really standard move, because I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. It's the most common move in the database. Couple things. Again, it's simply getting the rook off of this diagonal, so that way there's no funny business there. It's reinforcing the c3 knight. But then also there are possibilities that, for example, if white were to ever play queen goes to c2, now the rook is hanging, and so there's shenanigans that might happen after a takes b5. And so rook a3, really classy move, actually. I ended up playing queen goes to b4. Partly because I didn't really know what else to do. I'm like, okay, I'm hitting this pawn, hitting this pawn. What's he going to do? He ends up playing rook goes to b3, and the only safe square for my queen is right back. Then after knight f3, we get into sort of like the second, or like a really big decision here. So up till now, I played more or less natural moves. The computer eval is um, just around +1, depending on how long you run, which I think is pretty standard for misplaying an opening where you're sacrificing a pawn. But all in all, it's okay. I mean, it's still a game. What do you do? What's your next move? And again, I never liked anything with this a takes b5, bishop takes b5, just allowing this queenside clamp. I don't know. I can't. What do I do? I let the computer run for a little bit. Let's just keep playing some natural moves, keep playing some moves. It suggests like some of this stuff. And I feel like I'm doing absolutely nothing here. At the same time, the computer, it's still around that +1, so the evaluation hasn't really changed. And it's still going to take white quite a bit of work to actually do anything here. And maybe it's okay. I mean, this is best play, it says the computer. But it seemed really unhappy. How about that? And this is one of the weaknesses that I have as a player, is I've noticed in these sorts of positions, it's where I try and force things too much. So said differently, I didn't like that because I didn't really get any play. And so I've got to do something different. um, just because I don't like option A doesn't mean I should immediately go to option B. And I'm actually curious, this is any viewers out there, what moves jump out? Or do you see anything besides A takes B5? Because honestly, in my head, there's only one move that I considered the entire time, which was this, E6, trying to get into kind of like this Benoni position. And this move makes some sense and appear. I mean, I like to think it makes sense because I played it and it was the only move I could think of. Trying to open up the center. That is, the queen side looks blocked. If I do anything over there, again, there's this A takes B5. He's got that eternal clamp. So why don't we play in the center? Maybe we could open lines. It'll be kind of like a Benoni. His king hasn't castled yet. Of course, he can castle um, more or less immediately, but maybe there's something. Maybe there's something there. Takes. Okay, he castled. All right. Now what do I do? So my whole idea was to play bishop goes to b7. And we can see, again, what I have done is I'm trying to open the center. I'm trying to get played. Look at this. We've got some pressure here on the e-pawn. But the more I look at this, sort of the sober second thought, the day after analysis, what I have really done is I'm still down a pawn, but now I've really weakened my position. Let's go back to that computer line. If we look at this position, look how solid black structure is. Sure, we're down a pawn. That passed a pawn over here on the queen side, but it's going to take white a really long time to get through. And if white's not careful, uh, black can create some sort of play, or at the very least, some sort of blockade. And there's still a lot of work left here in this position. If we come back to here, we can see at this point, black has the only real weaknesses in the position. My king is a little bit weaker, right? This diagonal, actually, spoiler alert, um, much or you can imagine a bishop goes to c4 or queen goes to b3, and all of a sudden my king could be in trouble based on that. My pawn structure is the weakest. This is the weakest pawn on the board. This pawn is also weak, half open file, completely staring down. Even if I can play d5, we're just getting type of like this hanging pawn structure. White has no weaknesses. Like the closest thing white has to a weakness is this a5 pawn, just because the rook is blocking the queen from doing it. And so this was kind of my saving grace. We'll have noticed, of course, that this bishop and the queen, it's not a very happy relationship for me. But I was relying on the fact that if this knight were to move anywhere at any time, I'd be able to snag this pawn. So try to use tactics sort of to justify my position. And so what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to play actively. I'm trying to put my pressure on the opponent. But in doing so, I've created a really loose, weakening position. And I think it's much easier for white to play. And again, I think what white should do and what white did is what are black's weaknesses? How do we attack them? He plays knight goes to g5. He attacks e6. I throw my rook over to defend it. He plays bishop c4, just completely attacking it. I'm forced to enter in this complication, so let's look at this. I play d5. He takes. Intermezzo, hitting the bishop, comes back, take. I saw all of this, and I still thought that I'm kind of doing okay. Or that is, it's better than that queenside clamp. Now, at the very least, sure, I'm down 2 pawns, but at least I've got open files for my rooks. Every piece is active, and I've probably got something going here. In the game, my opponent took on a6. I recaptured, and then took on d5. So this actually starts a really long forcing sequence. Takes, takes, takes. Finally, opening up the discovery on my queen, which has been sitting there for about 10 moves now. Temporarily up a second pawn. Have to do something. And so really the question becomes, do we take on a5? Because again, that was always the idea. Knight moves, there's no defender to the pawn. Sorry, the a4 pawn. Or do we play bishop takes a2? So he's attacking my queen, I attack his. What do we do? Sorry. And this is really the critical move in the game, or the critical decision. Which one is better? Here, or let's see if I can color it differently. Here. So first, let's look at what happened in the game. I ended up taking the pawn. He recaptured my bishop. And now, if I were to take the bishop this way, I fall into a fork. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually retake his knight. I wasn't completely happy with this because I feel, again, that this diagonal is going to be very, very weak, especially if he has his bishop and I don't. And honestly, I just completely missed that this is a skewer, or a fork, or whatever we call this position. So I ended up losing exchange either way. Queen goes to d4, take, take. Now, I still thought at this point, okay, I'm in a bad position, but it's probably not that bad. Or at the very least, maybe I can do something now. There's no queenside clamp. My knights are really, really good. His bishop is passive. We got an open diagonal for my bishop. We can imagine, say, I can bring my knight here, or I can bring my bishop here. Vera brings his thing back to f3, right? He might. I felt like there was something here, or at the very least, I knew my position was bad. Like it wasn't very great. White has some sort of advantage, but there's probably room here for White to make a mistake. That was my thought. Um, do I have a sample line? Yes. Aha. So for example, I was looking at knight f3, take, take, Queen goes to d2. And then this looks like a really tempting move because it's hitting the rook once I move. But then I'd be able to do a sudden back rank checkmate. Isn't that nice? I was relying on this. This doesn't work because actually this is a much better skewer. Not getting rid of the back rank, I would have just lost. Fortunately, this position didn't happen. My opponent actually played bishop goes to e3. And it's right here um, where, again, I had seen this. So it was interesting playing over the board instead of on the computer. I could see well up to a certain point, but I had really interesting blind spots. So I was able to calculate, and up until now, I had only looked at takes, he's going to exchange queens, um, and then we get something like this, in which I thought I was okay-ish. But even there, looking at that sober second thought isn't very good. But then I realized right before I was going to make the move that he's not going to exchange queens and just go, no, he's going to do this. And now all of a sudden, I don't have two good knights. I don't have really like that block. But all of a sudden, his rooks are the ones that are coming in. His rooks are coming in. And if I don't exchange queens, his queen's going to come down on this light diagonal and just absolutely eviscerate me. Here's where I really realized, oh shoot, I can't do that. So I can't just take this bishop. I thought, okay, well, let's keep the queens on. Queen goes to b3 or c4 here. He brings the rook down. And at this point, it was at this instant that I realized I was busted. Again, I don't want to just take the bishop. This would be even worse now. Again, open files for the rooks. Everything is going to be able to come on down. Looks really, really scary. So I end up playing knight goes to g4, kind of like this last gasp type thing. Maybe I can get some sort of fork here going on. Maybe he could overreact. And again, this is probably, I suppose, my biggest miscalculation. Or I consider it a hallucination because I saw my opponent's reply b3. And I saw that my queen was being distracted. My queen is guarding both of my knights. And if my queen has no good squares to defend either knight. In fact, my queen has no squares to defend the knight. Like, I can't go here. Whoops, that doesn't work. I can't go here. That obviously doesn't work. And if my queen moves literally anywhere else, either knight hangs. And I was looking at, again, takes, he recaptures, and I was going to play just this, and then with the idea he takes my queen, I take his. And somehow I didn't realize that, duh, he's going to retake, and he's actually up a whole rook. Oh, wow. And so it was at the very last second, I can't just do this. I'm going to lose a rook. What I can't, all right, if I move my queen, I lose the knight, so maybe I'll go here. At least this way, I'm attacking the rook, and he has to do something. Now, this is clearly a terrible move, because at the very least, he can do this, and he's up an entire piece and a pawn, safer king, threatening all sorts of nastiness. There's something even better than that. My opponent tortured me a little bit. I think he spent about 3 minutes playing the next move. He clearly saw it. It's queen goes to d5. We shook hands, but I said finish it off because it's always so pretty to do this lovely little smothered mate tactic. So that was the game. Um, it was a little bit humbling going through it with the computer because I thought that white was better for most of it, but I didn't appreciate how much better. Like, for example, if we're looking at this position, going back around move 20, I thought, it's a pretty decent position. It's claiming that white is completely winning. It's almost +4. Okay, wow. We go back here. When this whole d5, knight e5, I thought that this was really clever. Little intermezzo. I'm getting some things here. Nope, it's +3. We go back here to this sort of e6 decision. Take, take. It's +2 for white. And so if we look at this from a pure computer evaluation, I play quite poorly. What do we do besides e6? Because this position right here is the biggest teaching moment for me. Like, this is my takeaway. It's not, again, learn this opening better. It's not um, anything else sort of like theory related knowledge, but it's really a decision making process. Is where I didn't like this whole queenside clamp idea, and so then I just rejected it and I played this really without evaluating. That was my problem. I saw this, I didn't like that, and so I just played the next best option without even considering, oh, look at all these weaknesses. Oh, you got a worse structure, you're still down a pawn, you've got the weaker king, you've gained absolutely nothing for this. Absolutely nothing. It's really vague play. And did you notice how the rest of the game, like, I never really had a threat? Like, okay, I got my pieces to some better squares-ish, but it's always white who has these ideas of doing discover attacks, or it's white who can attack the king. His king was never in any danger. And he would have to fall asleep, to get checkmated or anything. There was never anything really there. And so I consistently make these decisions where I don't like A, and so then I default to B, and I've got to do something in my thought process to avoid this. It's got to be more than just I don't like one thing, so let's just do something else. And it's interesting because there's actually other moves here. I checked the database. Nothing in the masters, of course. But on Lichess, we've got, Queen C7, which is a little bit ugly, but it's getting the queen away, and then keeping the tension over here, and then seeing what happens. Or the most played move, playing this knight G4 idea. And if we can just imagine something like castles, we exchange the pawns, and then the computer suggests the following. Then we come back here. So again, White's got that 1.5, evaluation, but that was the same as before. So the evaluation hasn't really changed. But at least there's some ideas here. There's no longer bishop takes b5, so it's not the same clamp afterwards. You've got this c5 square if you want to reroute, or of course you've got maybe d3, possibly. There's like the f5, f4 ideas. Maybe e6 makes a bit more sense now. I, I feel as if there's at least play here. The bishop might actually come alive. I don't know if you noticed. It was something that I really noticed after the game. This bishop is supposed to be the big bishop in the Benko. Did nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was no threats. There was no long diagonal. Nothing. At least in a position like this, we can imagine that bishop's going to do something. Or at least white's going to have to do something like bishop d4 to challenge it. Because otherwise it'd be too uncomfortable. I think this is an interesting idea. And the idea didn't come across me. I did not even consider it as a candidate move. And I think, again, this is that weakness, is I feel like I was right. My position was a little bit uncomfortable. And so then I kind of lashed out. I changed things drastically, made a huge, changing the structure and all of that, accepting the weak pawns, the weak king, weak squares, weak everything, um, almost out of desperation, when again, I didn't need to do that. Now, my opponent played an extremely good, extremely accurate game, with the exception of right around here, where I said we have two moves, right? We got queen takes a4, we got bishop takes e2. Let's look at that. Bishop takes e2. I'm hitting his queen, he's hitting mine. So what happened is, again, I calculated take, take, take. And at the time, I thought knight takes d5 won a piece, because if we back up, sort of at the beginning, see how this bishop was here? And so then I'm imagining bishop takes, queen takes, queen takes. And so in my head, after the rook's recaptured, I still had that bishop on this square. And so I didn't realize when I was first doing my calculations that the bishop moved, and so the rook can now, again, so if we just see that. Sorry. Let's see if I can do this better. Take, 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 take. So when I was looking at the board, this bishop is still back here. And so I thought knight takes d5 just won a piece. Well, obviously no, rook takes d5. And once I realized that, I abandoned looking at this position. Because it looks pretty bad, right? White's up 2 pawns. But all you have to do is look one move further. And it's funny because, again, the sober second thought the next day, as soon as I looked at the position, I'm like, hey, but what about this? Opening up that back rank, the only thing defending the back rank is that bishop. And that bishop has no squares, right? You can't just defend the bishop. Take, take. That's how you lose the game. Okay. Bishop can't. Bishop can't go there, loses. It can't go there. I exchange, right? And then same thing. That's checkmate. Uh, can't go here. It's the exact same thing. And obviously, it can't go all the way. So actually, there's nowhere that that bishop can go. And so he would have to do something like rook goes to, no, not that. Where is the right move? Something like knight f3 to defend the pawn. And then I could like get a position like this. How about that? Whoa. So let's just back up so I can actually do this properly. All right, knight goes to c4. Again, we're threatening the bishop to do the checkmate. Let's say uh, he'll do this, but then he'll bring the knight back to defend. I move my knight. He takes the pawn. Fantastic. And so what happened is I won a piece, but he's got 3 pawns for it. 2 of them are passed. 2 of them are on the queen's side. But I have fully active pieces. Peter says this is winning for black. I have absolutely no idea. An overboard game where we each had about 15 minutes left on our clock at this point. But all of a sudden, there's pressure there, right? And so this is really saying, if we were to back all the way up, that after bishop takes e2, he could not recapture um, all of this precisely because of this knight c4. Wow. All right. So I misevaluated this. I need to look one move further. And so what that also really means is after this, instead of taking my queen, he's got to take back. Now I can take this pawn. He's only up 1 pawn. Um, and his queen is now facing this. I got open files. I got open things. And the computer actually says this position is completely equal. White has completely thrown away his advantage. We can imagine something. Computer line is this. And then rook goes to e3. And at the end of the day, um, this is trying to transition into one of those, I want to say, a fairly routine rook endgame. I have no idea if I could hold a pawn down rook endgame like so, but a lot better than losing instantly. I don't know if I have much else to say about this game. It was an absolute thrill to play over the board. Really, really enjoyed that. A couple of hallucinations. It's different looking at the physical board. I found that again, like with that whole bishop d2 thing, where I saw the bishop there even after it moved. So that was different, something I don't see when I'm looking at the screen or visualizing in my head. So that was different. Super amazing experience for anyone who almost exclusively plays online, like me, for the last decade or so. If you have a chance to go out, it was great. Really, really great. Highly recommend. But otherwise, again, the main takeaway isn't so much the chess. For me, is really the decision making, because I have to be able to improve my decision making to stop lashing out. So again, this analysis is mostly for me, mostly my own thoughts, being able to explain that. But if you found anything of useful, great. That's always great. And there are 4 more rounds, so there'll be 1 game each week for the next month, and hopefully I can get my first win coming out. But that's not bad, so I'll stop it there. I just realized that there's no lights on, so I've been covered in shadows the entire time. Whoops. Oh well. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll have more videos. Like, I'll be doing this. I've got some other stuff coming up, and I'll keep doing. I'll be more active. How about that? So thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.